volunteer someone who would not mind being blindfolded?
Dana.
Yay! Okay. So we're going to do something a little different. I need you all to stand up. And Dana, I'm going to spin her around a little bit so she's a little disoriented. Can you see? But Luke is going to help her so she doesn't run into anything. Okay, so not that we need to be doing chanting or anything, but I want you guys to say the name of your functional area. Okay, or just kind of talk about your functional area. And Dana is going to try to find me, and I'm going to be saying Women's Center. Okay? And Luke's going to help her. All right, so we'll start.
Student life. Student life. Student life.
Career services.
So Dana, could you find the Women's Center? Here where I was. Okay, so we're going to do it again. This time Luke is going to guide her to me. Okay, I'm going to do that. Go.
Career services.
Student life.
Career services. Career services. Career services. So just to kind of stress, in performing our interviews and doing our project, one of the issues that Women's Centers talked about was finding visibility on campus. So specifically at the University of Minnesota, where there's a campus of 50,000 students and they have an office of 3 employees, one of the major challenges is figuring out how do we reach out to all these different students and make our message known and have it heard when technically women make up more than half of the students and population on campus.
Yeah, and also when there is, we've talked about so many different areas that give services to students. And so we're not necessarily in competition with these other services, but just finding a way to guide people to the services that we can provide. So one more interactive thing, what do you guys think a Women's Center does? Or what happens? Raise your hands or shout it out or...
Provide areas for mothers to nurse.
Okay, nursing mothers, yes.
Sexual violence awareness.
Sexual violence awareness, yes.
Leadership opportunities.
Leadership opportunities, great, yes.
Facilitating conversations and or training about gender issues and acting.
Yes, all of those things.
Condoms.
Condoms, yes, I didn't see any at UST campus when I was there, but I will say. Yeah, anybody else? Okay, so one of our resources identified 5 central needs that are echoed in mission statements of women's centers across the country. So these are just general mission statements. Safety, education, support and advocacy, equity and community. And the CAS standards measure achievement based on both developmental outcomes and a program's success at addressing institutional environment. So they're not only working to serve the needs of individuals, but also working to improve the overall environment on college campuses. Do you want to talk about that last point there?
Yep, so when I went to the Women's Center and actually have it on one of their bookmarks, they have different bookmarks that they have that say kind of on the back, their connect, lead, and change, which is kind of their motive on, or their way that they reach out to the campus in different ways. And I thought one of the quotes was really awesome. It says, and it touches on identity and connecting to other groups on campus, but they said, for me, there's no separating my womanness from my blackness, from my transness, from my me-ness. So it's kind of touching on all these different aspects that can be part of a woman or your identity on campus. And it's written by Janet Mock, who used to be, I believe, a writer for People magazine, but yeah.
So they're a space that can really welcome any sort of intersectional identity or whatever your identity may be. So what we did on our handouts, Luke is going to be handing those out. When we talked about our people that we interviewed, we told more about their background. But in our presentation, we would like to focus more on what each center does interviewed Dr. Ahn at the William Gummer Center for Women at the University of St. Thomas. And something that makes the Center for Women at UST very unique is that they are completely funded by an endowment from Luann Gummer. So they don't receive any funding or very little funding from the university itself. All their money comes from this endowment. And also that if we're looking at organizational structure, they report directly to the president. So they're not part of student affairs, not part of academic affairs, but they have a direct line to her. One other thing that I really liked about their center is that they serve not only students, but they serve staff and faculty. And you'll find a little bit more about that in the handout. And just going back to LGBTQ services, there is also a space in their office for LGBTQ. They have a small library, they have information about LGBTQ services and support. They have these, what would you call them, small placards that staff or other people can pick up that say safe space that they can put in their office so that people know that they can be approached and that they can have a safe conversation. I also interviewed Metropolitan State University. Savvy Labor is the coordinator, and they have both of their offices merged, both the Women's Center and LGBTQ Student Resource Center. Her main challenge that she faces in that office is that they deal with a lot of computer students, a lot of students that might only be there for one semester. So she has to be very resourceful and assess the needs each semester and make sure she's meeting those students.
Okay, so I'll go into my interviews now, and I interviewed, I think, 4 different institutions, and one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is how different each of the women's centers are based on the need of the campus. So for example, at the University of Minnesota, it's actually the first women's center in the nation, which I did not know until I started this project, and it was founded in 1948. And they like to say, which is their exact quote, they're the oldest center in the galaxy. And so it's part of the Office for Equity and Diversity. One of their main functions is providing scholarships for women, recognizing important women faculty on campus through annual awards, and then also leading workshops. Because the university is so large, the University of Minnesota, they have other offices that do work with issues of sexual assault or issues where women might feel like they've been a victim. So their main focus is more on the education piece at this office, although they do have different workshops that they kind of train on different issues related to women. For Minnesota State University Mankato, I actually spoke with 2 people. I spoke with the past director, Deirdre Rosenfeld, and then also the current director, Jessica Flatiqual. And one of the reasons they thought that their women's center that they stood out as having a women's center is they were actually the first school to have an MS in women's studies. So under Deirdre Rosenfeld, she told me that one of her greatest achievements was she was able to get funding to go from $4,000 a year to $40,000 a year by kind of leveraging student activity fees. And so that was something she was really proud of. And a lot of their work there is kind of a crisis center for students to go to if they've been a victim of sexual assault. They do body positive and sex positive programming activities such as Take Back the Night. They do a lot of things of eating disorders. And currently now, because Deirdre Rosenfeld has actually left and is now part of Ohio State University, Jessica, who used to be in charge of the LGBT center, is also now in charge of this center as well, so she kind of oversees both centers, which is interesting to have a director of 2 different centers that aren't in the same location as well. For Dunwoody College of Technology, I was not super familiar with this school prior to this project, but I learned that, so they're a local college that focuses mainly on STEM background, STEM programs, so most of the students that are going there are men, and so there's only 13% females, and so in some regards, their center is a place for women to come together and find support, learn about how to go into the job market in a field that may be predominantly men, and they also work on kind of work with women's initiatives in terms of enrollment on how to increase women. And last thing I'm going to talk about St. Kate's University. So their center is actually housed under academic affairs, and it's an all-women's college. And so at this center, there's only one employee that's full-time. The director is actually faculty, so mainly the one employee, Sia Bang, works there. And it's more of a place for students to come and hang out and do homework, just kind of get together and use as an open space. It's not necessarily to work with women who've been sexually assaulted or do orders for protection or that sort of thing. It's more for just kind of to create a place, a sense of community. And so quick before we jump into questions, I'm just going to talk about the handout a little bit. You can look through, and on our first page you can see the